All right, so number 4, we're going to start out with J.D. DeWudo. Now, this guy is a shorter guy. He wasn't that heavy on stage, but I think he had a crazy, freaky physique in terms of his upper body, especially. When we look at his arms, man, his arms had some crazy good peaks. His legs were pretty subpar, and that's probably what led to his placings being a little bit lower. So really, I'm not really too sure what happened to this guy. His placings were never that high. And he just kind of fell off the map after his last show, and we never really heard from him again. So here's his competitive history. As you can see, his highest placing at an IFBB show was 4th place. And he placed 4th a couple times, actually. But after, looks like 2003, he pretty much just stopped competing, and he was never really heard from again in any sort of bodybuilding capacity. But if you just look at his upper body, man, he had a freaky little upper body, some freaky little biceps. I think he would have done some real fucking damage in the 212. So number 3, we have Orville Burke. Now this is one of my favorite dudes from back in the day. He had a crazy upper body. Look at those lats from the front, man. Look at his biceps. Look at that V-taper. Look at the X-shaped frame. I mean, he's got fucking everything. The only thing is his legs were a little bit lacking compared to his upper body, and that was probably a big detractor from his placings. So Orville Burke was a guy who he had an accident in 2002. It's kind of unclear exactly what happened, but it was a medical accident, and he ended up in a coma. So as you can see here, he had some good placings. He won the Night of Champions. He won the Toronto Pro. So he was a good placing IFBB Pro. But really, no one is really too sure what happened to this guy. But he ended up in a coma in 2002, and he was pretty much not heard from again. So number 2, we have Silvio Samuel. And this guy is number 2 because he's placed so highly in some of his shows. This guy is a frequent 7th place finisher at the Olympia, which is it's a big achievement, man, to place 7th place at the Olympia and then just never be heard from again. There's a lot of good guys like Evan Centopani, Rolly Winkler, you got Justin Compton, Josh Lenardowitz, who have placed worse than 7th place or placed 7th place at the Olympia, and those are big name guys. This guy's placed 7th place 2 years in a row, and he fell off the map completely. Now, the reason he fell off the map was because he's currently serving a 5-year prison sentence for aggravated assault. But I just think that's a pretty big deal that he placed so highly in the Olympia 2 times in a row, and now he's just completely, like, his name is like erased from bodybuilding history. I never hear anybody talk about this guy anymore. And he had a pretty damn good physique, so I don't really understand why, aside from the assault charge, no one really talks about him. He had a pretty damn good physique. So number 1 is Aaron Baker. Now this guy is an absolute freak. He looks a lot like Victor Richards in terms of his mass and his big muscle bellies and shit. And this was an old school guy from the 90s, was pretty much his prime, I believe. And this guy he also just kind of fell off the map. But actually, I was reading through some forums, and he still bodybuilds. He just doesn't compete. He's still got a decent physique. I believe he's like 50 something right now. So he still looks pretty good. He wasn't injured or anything like that, I don't believe. So he just kind of fell off the map. As you can see, he has one of the largest and most extensive competitive histories of any of these guys. And that's why I think he's number 1, because he has the biggest, most memorable, freaky physique, and he was one of the most active, competitive-wise, of all these guys that I listed above. So I think he deserves recognition as the number 1 most forgotten bodybuilder. That really shouldn't have been forgotten, and he really needs to be, put in a video and kind of recognize how fucking massive he was. So that's the video, guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.